The chapter 11 on Jonathan Turner's book takes place on the stage model evolutionary theorizing way back 19th century, where it is an era dominated with biological discoveries. We can see Auguste Comte, Herbert Spencer, and Emil Durkheim manifest social evolution as a process of structural differentiation that moved from simple to complex forms, while other classical figures such as Marx and Weber view societal change as a revolutionary epoch and rationalization. Like functionalism, evolutionary theorizing collapsed from sociology during 20th century, and this discipline was kept by anthropologists, knowing that, like functionalism again, evolutionary theorizing will prove and pave and answer societal issues. Thus, the revival of functionalism also brought evolutionary theorizing into action in 1960s through the works of functionalist Talcott Parsons for action system and conflict theorist Gerhard Lenski's study on technology. With revival of evolutionary theorizing, it shifted away from the traditional ethnocentric approach and more on the analytical models, whereas how driving forces of population growth and technology, for instance, push societies into greater complexity.
Dito sa early stage models of societal evolution, papasok si Auguste Comte, Herbert Spencer, and Emil Durkheim. Dito muna tayo kay Auguste Comte. Ito yung tinatawag na early theory. Ang overview ng early theory ni Auguste Comte ay he coined the term sociology noong 1830, which established a formal field of study. Sinasabi niya rin na yung ideas and beliefs are shaped by societal transformations, meaning, nagbabago yung meaning in society influence how people think and what they believe. Yung work niya provided a simple at abstract foundation that later thinkers expanded tulad ni Herbert Spencer. Dinevelop niya yung ideas into a more evolutionary framework. Si Emil Durkheim naman, inelaborate niya into conceptually and empirically, especially in studying social order at cohesion. Sunod naman natin ay yung problems of integrated different parts of society into a coherent whole. Itong figure na to, na-discuss na actually siya nung mga unang chapters ng libro. But to summarize na lang, yung social statics na sinasabi dito ay it is how the society stays stable, organized, and united. So, ang core idea niya, yung all parts like family, government, economy, at religion, they all must work together. Yung stability, it happens when there is order and harmony. So, paano ba nagiging stable ang society? Dito papasok yung new integrative mechanisms revolving around structural interdependencies, centralization of power and authority, at yung common culture. So, to summarize lang rin ulit to, yung interdependence, yung mga tao at institutions, they need each other para mag-function. Pangalawa, yung strong authority, yung central power like government, they keeps order and coordination. And third, yung shared beliefs and values. People follow the same rules, norms, and ideas which keeps them united. So, saan papasok yung social pathologies? Papasok yung social pathologies kapag nag-fail yung social integration. So, dito pa rin sa problem integrating society into a coherent whole, yung key issue kasi sa early sociology is how different parts of society stay integrated and coordinated. So, when integration fails, society may experience social pathologies like deviance, conflict, at poor coordination. And dito, merong three basic mechanisms ng social integration. So, to maintain unity, societies rely on three core mechanisms. Ito yung mutual interdependence. Yung different parts of society ay nakadepende siya sa each other para mag-function. Tulad ng economy, education, at government. They all rely on one another. Second naman is yung centralization of power and authority. So, yung central authority, like yung state, they helps control, coordinate, and regulate the society. At yung pangatlo, yung shared culture, like norms, values, and beliefs, yung common cultural system ay nagke-create siya ng social cohesion by aligning yung behavior at yung expectations ng mga tao. And take note lang din na yung theoretical development na ito, Auguste Comte did not fully develop these ideas into an evolutionary model. Si Herbert Spencer later expanded them into a theory of social evolution, comparing niya yung society to a living organisms that grows and becomes more complex over time. So these, yung mga tao na nabanggit dito, maliban kay Comte, ay ma-elaborate siya later ng mga susunod na magre-report.
I'll give you the overview of Spencer Roebuck's theory. Sir Herbert Spencer ay isang philosopher na nag-develop ng systematic philosophy. His main idea is that everything in the universe, whether social, biological, or physical, follows one master law, yung evolution yung tinatawag. Ibig sabihin, lahat ng bagay nagsisimula sa simple to homogeneous, then gradually nagiging complex and differentiated. For example, sa society, dati simple lang ang structure, but over time, nagkakaroon ng division of roles, institution, and system. The logic here is very clear. As system grow, they also specialize, kaya mas nagiging organized, pero complex din. Dahil dito, Spencer created one of the most complete stage of societal evolution, showing how societies develop step by step. In short, Spencer's theory explains that progress is a natural movement from simplicity to complexity across all aspects of life. Now, let's move forward with the stages of societal evolution. According to Herbert Spencer, societies develop in stages. Nagsisimula ito sa simple societies, either without a head, meaning walang formal leader, or with a head, meaning na may political leader na. As societies grow, it becomes more complex through what he called compounding. So we have compound, double compound, treble compound, and even quadruple compound societies. Habang tumataas ang stage, mas nagiging organized at mas maraming structures ang nabubuo. Habang lumalaki ang population at interactions, kailangan ng specialization, kaya't nagkakaroon ng differentiated societal formation. These include four main function: production or paggawa ng goods, regulation or paggawa ng rules, distribution or pagpapakalat ng resources, and reproduction or continuation of society. To support his theory, Spencer and his team created descriptive sociology, a collection of data about different societies. Societies evolve from simple to complex by becoming more structured and specialized over time. Spencer believed that population growth is the starting force that pushes societies to evolve. Kapag dumadami yung tao, hindi na sapat yung simple way of living kaya napipilitang mag-adapt yung society. The logic is simple. More people means more needs. Kaya nagkakaroon ng pressure to improve in four areas, tulad na lamang ng economic production, regulation, distribution, and reproduction. For example, mas maraming tao means mas maraming food and goods na kailangan. So the production increases. Kailangan din ng rules and authority, kaya may regulation na tinatawag. Then resources and information must be shared properly, which is the distribution na tinatawag na natin. And of course, society must manage family and social structure, which is the reproduction. As new systems are created, society becomes more differentiated or specialized. Pero here's the clear idea. This process doesn't stop. Habang mas naging complex ang society, mas dumadami rin yung mga bagong problems. So parang cycle siya. Growth leads to complexity, and complexity creates new challenges that push further development. Population growth triggers continuous societal or social evolution. According to Spencer, population growth is the initial force that pushes societies to change. Noong dumadami ang tao, especially when hunter-gatherers started to settle down, nawala yung kanilang pagiging simple balance or equilibrium na tinatawag. The more people there are, the more needs arise. Dahil dito, nagkakaroon ng selection pressures or demand for improvement in four key areas. First is the economic production. Kailangan mas maraming pagkain at resources. Second is regulation. Kailangan ng rules leadership, at cultural system to maintain order. Third is the distribution. Dapat maayos ang sharing ng information, resources, at even people. And fourth is the reproduction. Society must organize families and social units through culture. So habang lumalaki ang population, society is forced to become more organized and specialized. Population growth drives societal evolution by creating new needs that society must solve. Dito, in-explain niya na ang society ay nag-grow by becoming more complex and specialized, na tinatawag na differentiation. Habang lumalaki ang society, mas dumadami yung roles, institution at systems. May dalawang main drivers ng pag-grow nito. Yun yung population increase and conquest. Kapag dumadami ang tao, mas kailangan ng organization. At kapag may pananakop na nangyayari, nag-e-expand ang society by absorbing new people and structures. Kapag nag-e-expand, nagkakaroon ng pressure. Habang lumalaki ang complex ng society, mas dumadami ang problems na kailangang isolve, tulad ng managing resources, maintaining order, at organizing people. Dahil dito, nagiging self-sustaining ang differentiation. Parang cycle siya. Yung growth nagli-lead sa complexity, tapos yung complexity nagli-lead ulit sa more growth. Sa mas madaling salita, tuloy-tuloy yung evolution ng society kasi bawat stage nagpo-produce ng bagong challenges na nagtutulak for further development. Nag-warn siya na kapag sobra ang coercive power tulad ng excessive control or sobrang focus sa war, ay pwedeng makasama ito sa society. Instead na makatulong, pinapahiya nito yung free market at pinapataas yung inequality. Kapag masyadong centralized yung power, nawawala yung freedom ng mga tao to innovate. Dahil dito, bumabagal yung economic growth at nagkakaroon ng social tension. Yung mga societies na masyadong focus sa conquest, pwedeng mabilis na mag-grow. Pero, mataas din yung risk ng internal conflict at instability. Sa paglipas ng panahon, pwede itong mag-lead sa disintegration. Ayon rin kay Spencer, possible yung outcomes ito ay de-evolution, kung saan bumabalik sa mas simpleng form ang society or tinatawag nga rin na total collapse. Kaya kahit nakakatulong ang growth at power, kapag sobra na ang control, pwede nitong sirain ang society from within. Sa madaling salita, importante ang balance. Kung wala nito, kahit advanced sa society ay pwedeng bumagsak.
Hello, I'm Christine Ocampo, and I'll be discussing Durkheim's theory of differentiation and integration. So, according to Emile Durkheim, habang lumalaki ang society, mas nagiging complex ito. Dati, simple lang yung mga roles, pero ngayon nagkakaroon na ng specialization. Iba-iba yung mga trabaho or roles ng tao, and he called it differentiation. Pero, the important question is, kahit nagiging complex ang society, paano pa rin ito nananatiling buo or united? For this slide, habang nagiging complex ang society, tumataas din yung risk na mag-breakdown ito. Dito naman pumapasok yung tinatawag ni Durkheim na social pathologies. Halimbawa, sa anomy, dito walang clear na rules, kaya confused ang mga tao. Sa egoism naman, feeling isolated ka. And sa inequality, hindi pantay ang mga rewards. And sa poor coordination, hindi nagtutulungan yung mga institutions. Meaning, hindi automatic na nag-a-adjust ang society. Kailangan talaga ng system para manatiling stable. Ang first solution ni Durkheim is to create common culture. Ito yung mga shared values, norms, and beliefs. Pero habang nagiging complex nga ang society, nagiging masyadong abstract ang values. Like, be successful. Pero hindi naman clear kung paano. Kaya nagkakaroon ng anomy. Kaya nag-introduce siya ng ideology as solution. Ito yung nagbibigay ng specific guidelines. Like for example, sa school, study hard. Sa work naman, be productive. So, mas nagiging clear yung direction ng mga actions ng tao. Pero, hindi lang values and ideology ang kailangan or important. Sabi ni Durkheim, kailangan din ng deeper connection. Kaya, importante ang mga symbols tulad ng flag, which guides the behavior. Another is totems. Ito yung symbols ng identity ng group. At rituals like celebrations or traditions. Dito nagkakaroon ng emotional connection yung mga tao. Additionally, may interdependence. Kailangan natin yung isa't isa dahil sa specialization. Pero, hindi lang contracts ang nagpapatakbo ng society. May tinatawag din na non-contractual morality, like yung trust and fairness. So, in conclusion of Durkheim's theory, hindi maiiwasan ang differentiation. Natural talaga na maging complex yung society. Pero, the challenge is integration. Kapag mahina ang integration, nagkakaroon ng breakdown or gulo sa society. Kaya ang pinaka-key insight ni Durkheim is, habang nagiging complex ang society, mas kailangan natin ng strong culture, morality, and shared symbols para manatiling stable ang system.
Good day everyone. So today I will be discussing the early conflicting theoretic explanation of Karl Marx. So in understanding society, he had developed the 5 stages of evolution. So the first one is yung primitive communism, whereas nag-start po ang society through hunting and gathering. Then the second one is yung nagkaroon naman po ng slavery. Then the third is the feudalism, whereas merong feudal lord versus the peasant. Then fourth is capitalism, whereas meron the emergence of industrial revolution. Different factories emerge, the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. Yun po yung merong hierarchy between those two, the working class and the ruling class. And last one is yung communism, which is the last stage according to Marx, na it is a stage whereas ang mga working class ay magre-revolt against the capitalists, the unequal treatment of capitalists. According to Marx, means of production is the foundation of society. Because of the work na meron yung mga proletariat, it gives the means of living. On the other side naman po, the capitalist who owns and control the means of production, so sila ngayon yung merong capacity para exploit ang mga working class through giving them low wages, yung maliliit na sahod, kahit ang trabaho naman nila is mahabang oras yung ginugol nila at hindi ganun kagaan. So dito nagkakaroon po ng exploitation dahil yun nga, hindi po sapat yung binibigay ng mga ruling class sa mga working class. At dahil dito, makikita natin yung kanilang unjust treatment na pag ibebenta na po nila sa market ay mataas. While kapag yung bibigyan nila sahod sa nagtrabaho ay mababa. At dito po nagkakaroon ng surplus. Na kung saan itong surplus na to ay ito yung nag-i-enable sa capitalist para pumunta sa government system. At through having access sa government system dahil sila yung mayroong resources, ay na-manipulate nila yung mga laws and ideologies na ipapatupad ng government. For example na lang, yung mga laws na tinotolerate yung mga unjust na ginagawa nila. At dito, walang magawa yung mga proletariat, the working class, dahil sila yung nandun sa government system. Yun yung mga bourgeoisie, yung mga nandun sa government system na minamanipulate yung kanilang ginagawa. The 3 critical elements in sustaining social system. So first is the market. Because of market, na-integrate yung mga tao. Dahil sa market merong employer, the employee, and the consumer. Dahil sa kanilang tatlo, ay nagkakaroon ng product. At ang product ay nagagamit ng mga consumer. Dahil po dito sa interdependence ng mga ito, 'di ba? Pag walang worker, walang product, walang consumer. Dahil dito sa interdependence nila sa isa't isa, na-integrate yung mga tao. Second naman is yung power. So, dahil nga sa merong interdependence yung mga tao sa isa't isa, na-integrate sila, yung power ay napupunta sa government para magbigay ng mga laws na magsisecure sa kanilang rights. Then third naman po is yung ideologies. Dahil na-integrate yung mga tao, may mga na-formulate na ideologies, for example, yung mga bourgeoisie na may access sa government, they can manipulate ideologies by exposing na normal lang ang inequality, kailangan ng tiyaga para yumaman, which is in reality naman, kahit anong tiyaga ng mga proletariat, kung ang equal treatment naman yung gagawin ng mga nasa taas, the bourgeoisie, wala rin. Marx's assumption daw, common people who do not benefit from the system of integration would create rebellion to start a conflict in society. So, itong three na binanggit po natin kanina nag-integrate sa society like yung market, power na ideology, for Marx, yung mga hindi nag-benefit dito, like the working class, the proletariat, will create revolution para magkagulo sa society. Yun nga. However, yung assumption niyo po na yun ay na-fail because of the two reasons. So, first is, Marx underestimated the lower class. So, para sa kanya, walang ability yung mga lower class or the working class para i-pressure yung government maggawa sila ng protest sa unequal treatment sa kanila ng society, which is, yun nga, manipulated by the bourgeoisie. Then, second naman po is yung overestimated naman ni Karl Marx yung power of bourgeoisie. Na, para sa kanya, the bourgeoisie, the ruling class can have access to everything, even dun sa mga pag-protest ng proletariat, which is dun po siya nagkamali. Na kayang gawin lahat ng mga working class, ng mga ruling class. However, yun, nagkaroon pa rin ng protest yung mga working class. So, thus, we can conclude na ang theories, mga key concept ni Marx is very insightful in understanding the integration of people in society. Though merong flaws man yung assumption niya na nagkamali man siya, but it is yung mga kanyang key concept is very important in understanding integration of people in a capitalist-based society.
So ngayon, mag-move naman tayo sa stage model ni George Simmel. So according kay Simmel, yung pag-transition natin into modern society is mas positive or benign compared kina Marx at Weber. Para sa kanya, habang umuunlad ng society, nagiging center dito sa markets at interdependence ng iba't ibang groups at social structures. Dahil dito, mas nag-open up ang new freedoms para sa individuals. So, sinabi niya din dito na ngayon, mas may freedom na ang mga tao pumili ng affiliations nila. Hindi na tayo katulad dati na nakatali sa mga repressive traditions or scripted groups na tulad ng family or status na pinanganakan natin. Ngayon, mas nakabase sa sarili nating preferences kung saan tayo magbe-belong at paano tayo mamumuhay. Nabanggit din dito na importante yung role ng money at market exchanges. According kay Simmel, ginagamit natin ang pera para ma-realize yung preferences natin sa mas malaking scale kumpara sa pre-capitalist societies. So, example na lang dito yung kapag bibili tayo ng goods or services. May expectation tayo na yung binabayad nating pera ay may mas mataas na value na kapalit. Dahil dito, tumataas yung individualism kasi mas nagkakaroon tayo ng capacity na i-achieve yung personal needs and wants natin. So, kahit maraming benefits, may downside din to. Dahil hindi na tayo deeply embedded sa isang group, nagiging marginal tayo sa maraming groups at minsan hindi natin maramdaman yung full sense of belonging. Kaya may tendency na makaramdam tayo ng isolation. Pero kahit ganon, sinasabi ni Simmel na dahil ang markets ang pangunahing mechanism ng integration sa society, nagkakaroon tayo ng mas malakas na sense of efficacy o yung pakiramdam na may control tayo sa buhay natin. Dahil dito, mas nililegitimize natin yung system like laws, markets, at government. Kasi nakikita natin na nagbibigay ito ng opportunities. Sa panghuli, ang integration ng society ay hindi na nakadepende sa common culture, kundi sa freedom at choice na dala ng markets. Kaya para kay Simel, ang markets ay liberating, hindi exploitive, at ang rationality ay hindi nakakasakal, kundi ito pa yung nagdadrive para dumami ang options ng tao na ma-achieve ang kanilang unique needs at preferences.
Ngayon, tignan natin kung paano in-explain ng Big Three ang evolution ng capitalism. Para kay Karl Marx, ang capitalism ay parang prelude o intro lang. Naniniwala siya na ang capitalism ay may dalang sariling pagbagsak. Ibig sabihin, habang lumalakas ang capitalism, lumalaki rin ang inequality, na eventually magtutulak sa revolution. Dito, magsisimula ang transition papunta sa communism, ang ultimate liberation para sa kanya. Para naman kay Max Weber, medyo pessimistic. Para sa kanya, sinira ng capitalism ang passion at tradition. Dahil sa sobrang focus sa efficiency at rules, nagiging mechanical ang buhay ng tao. Sinasabi niya na nakulong tayo sa isang iron cage, rationally at bureaucracy. Para naman kay Simmel, si George Simmel ay nakita ang positive side. Para sa kanya, ang liberating effect ng capitalism sa individual, binibigyan tayo ng modern society ng mas maraming choices at freedom kumpara sa dati. So, kahit may downside, may opportunity din para sa personal growth. Ngayon, sagutin naman natin ang tanong, bakit nga ba nag-evolve ang society? Ito ay dahil sa tinatawag na selection pressures. Habang lumalaki ang population, tumataas din ang demand sa resources, kaya napipilitan ng societies na mag-adapt at magbago. Habang nagiging mas complex ang society, nagbabago rin ang paraan kung paano tayo nagkakaisa o integration. May 4 na main fronts kung paano nagbabago ang integration sa modern society. Una ay ang culture. Sa modernong lipunan, ang moral codes ay nagiging abstract. Hindi na sapat ang general ideas tulad ng mabuting tao. Kaya, kailangan natin ng specific ideologies at norms para gabayan ang behavior sa iba't ibang areas ng buhay. Pangalawa naman ay ang interdependencies. Dati, authority o pinuno ang nagdidikta ng lahat. Ngayon, markets na ang nagkokontrol ng interaction natin. Dahil dito, tumataas ang individualism. May mas freedom tayong sundin ang sariling preferences. Next naman is yung polity. Nagiging mas democratic ang gobyerno. Kaya, mas kaya na nitong i-handle ang iba't ibang opinions at conflict ng iba't ibang grupo sa society. So, mas inclusive ang decision making. Last naman na yung law. Sobrang importante ng law at court sa modern society. Dahil silang nag-aayos ng conflicts at nagde-define ng relasyon ng gobyerno at mamamayan. Without law, magiging chaotic at complex ang society. Although, parang nawala na ang mga themes na ito nang huminang evolutionary theorizing sa sociology noong early 20th century. Hindi talaga sila nawala. Nanatili silang bahagi ng debate sa critical theoretical circles at eventually, bumalik sila sa mainstream sociology noong 1960s kasabay ng pagbabalik ng evolutionary theories tungkol sa stage ng societal development.
Now we arrive at the modern stage models of societal evolution, in particular Johann Lenski's theorizing social evolution. It says in his book Power and Privilege, a Theory of Stratification, technology determines the economic level of production, the level of economic production, and higher production leads to a greater economic surplus, and then surplus is then usurped by those with power, which result in increased inequality and privilege. So it works like a chain. First, the technology determines how much a society can produce. Second, higher production leads to a greater economic surplus. And what is economic surplus? It's the extra resources beyond basic needs. And third, this surplus is not shared equally. Instead, it is usually controlled or taken by those in power or the elites. Because of this inequality, truly begins to form. On the second slide, we look at the diagram. It's Lenski's basic model of conditions generating social equality. So now looking at this, we can see this process visually. It starts with technology, which leads to economic production, then to economic surplus. But the key part here is what Lenski calls the usurpation of surplus by those in power. That means that people in power, like political elites or economic elites, take control of the surplus. And as a result, we get the unequal distribution of power, which leads to social inequality. Now, on the third slide is the full model of Lenski's model of stratification. It expands the idea upon the model which is shown in the second slide. It is influenced by the inequality is not just a simple chain. It is influenced by many factors. For example, environmental or ecological conditions affect how much a society can produce. Population or demographic factors influence labor and production. Cultural and ideology can justify inequality, like beliefs about success or hierarchy. And external threats such as war can increase the concentration of power. All of this affect what we call the degree of unequal distribution of surplus, which then leads to a system of stratification. What's important here is that this system begins a cycle, and once inequality exists, those in power can maintain or even increase their control. Now on the fourth slide, the stages of societal evolution. Lenski also explains that societies develop through different stages based on the level of technology. So first we have the hunting and gathering societies. They have very low technology and almost no surplus, so inequality is very low. And next we have the horticultural societies, where basic farming begins, but surplus increases and inequality starts to grow. And then we have the agrarian societies, which from basic farming, from gardening without animal, to farming with animals, but domestically or cattle. And then these societies produce large surpluses and historically shows the highest levels of inequality because power becomes highly centralized to those who owns the agrarians, the farms. And then finally, we have the industrialized societies, which use machines and fossil fuels. These have the highest production, of course, but interestingly, inequality slightly decreases because Lenski explains this by pointing to democracy, education, and more egalitarian values which limit the power of the elites. Like, for example, workers unionizing to prevent exploitation by the elites. On to the next slide. The ecological evolutionary synthesis. It's a perspective in his later work that Lenski connects sociology with biology. So in biology, evolution depends on genes. In society, evolution depends on culture, especially technology. The key difference is that biological evolution is slow, but cultural evolution is fast because humans can create and share knowledge quickly because of what we call socialization. And then innovation, he also explains that change happens through innovation and extinction. So innovation is that new ideas and technologies appear, and extinction is that old systems disappearing, but change can be slowed down by things like tradition, ideology, and the interests of powerful groups who must to keep things the same. So basically, conservatives who are very traditional, who are allergic to progress. And finally, we have social speciation. So unlike biological speciation, which leads to more diverse species, cultural evolution tends toward fewer and less dissimilar societies, as more powerful societies conquer, co-op, or absorb smaller ones in a form of group selection.
Talcott Parsons created his evolutionary model mainly to answer critics who said functionalism could not explain social change. To respond, he proposed that societies do not stay the same. Instead, they develop in stages just like living organisms evolve. He explained this idea in 2 books. The first one is Societies, Evolutionary and Comparative Perspectives, where he explains the full theory. The second one is The System of Modern Societies, where he focuses more on modern society. Parsons based his theory on his idea of the 4 action systems. We have the cultural system, social system, personality system, and behavioral system. According to him, societies evolve when these systems become more complex and more organized. Even though many sociologists criticize the theory for ignoring power, inequality, and conflict, Parsons' work was still important because it brought back the idea of stage model evolution in sociology after almost 50 years. Now we have the 4 action systems, just like what I said earlier. Talcott Parsons explains society as made up of 4 action systems. Again, the cultural, social, personality, and organismic, or the behavioral. Each system has a role in keeping society working properly. First is the organismic system, focuses on survival and adaptation. Second one is the personality system, focuses on goals and individual motivation. The third one is the social system, connects people and keeps order. And last, cultural system provides values, norms, and meaning. He also believed that social evolution happens through differentiation. This means societies slowly become more complex because the systems separate from each other and develop more specialized roles. In simple societies, these systems are not clearly separated, but in modern societies, they become more independent and organized. His idea was influenced by two philosophers. First is the Emil Durkheim, Mechanical to More Complex Societies. Second one is Herbert Spencer, Societies Evolving from Simple to Complex. He also said that as societies become more complex, they face integration problems. But when these are solved, societies become stronger and more adaptable. This process is called adaptive upgrading. Now we have stages of societal evolution. Parsons explained that societies develop step by step through different stages of evolution. His model shows that societies do not suddenly become modern, instead, they slowly grow more complex. He identified these stages: the primitive, low primitive societies, advanced primitive, intermediate societies, archaic societies, advanced intermediate societies, modern, industrial, and post-industrial societies. This idea is similar to the theory of Gerhard Lansky, who explained social evolution through hunting-gathering, horticultural, agrarian, and industrial societies. He also explained that societies move from one stage to another when they reach a critical threshold. This means a society must first develop important structures such as law, government, and culture before it can become more advanced. For example, he believed modern industrial societies become possible only after the development of universal laws, especially in the Roman civil, which helped societies become more organized and complex.
Turner concludes that stage model evolutionary theorizing remains as one of the most enduring approaches in sociology, and he emphasizes that this approach were not even considered as a dominant on the field. It endured its founding as an approach, survived its rejection in the early 20th century, into becoming the vital framework that explains the long-term history of human societies, not biologically, but socially. And as Turner explains, he provided 4 key points for the stage model evolutionary theorizing. First, it has a widespread application in the image of evolution, where the process of structural and cultural differentiation is used on various theoretical frameworks from functionalism to critical theory. Second, the stage model provides coherent narrative where societies have been and a speculation on where the societies are going. Third, the increasing ideas intertwined with biological framework with stage model brings the discipline to its roots like founder Auguste Comte. And lastly, fourth, he gave significance on how stage model assess credibility on macro theorizing as it provides factual data on how social structure change over time.